And today we're going to look at the Barbarian tank for, well, it's currently mod 32, but this is using a lot of older gear as this is one of my alts. So, just looking through the gear I'm running, I am running some of the gear from Shackles of Divinity, the Master. Start off the helmet for the incoming healing and then the stats. I am running the Abyss Conqueror's Provoker Cuirass. It's one of the best chest pieces in the game I'm finding for tanks. I would like to run the Celestial one, but I have not ran this actually in MSOD yet, even though it is statted and capable to do so. It's a very nice chest piece, gives you a lot of stats, but the stats drop on and off in combat depending on where your stamina is sitting. Gloves, these fan braces, they are weird, to say the least. They look like DPS gloves until you realise that the bonuses should be the other way around. 50% or more, you get defense. 50% or lower, you get power. That doesn't make sense. Normally, DPS gloves or DPS items that go and have defensive stats, like the Mastercraft gloves, will give you a defensive stat when you drop below 50% to help your survivability. That when you're over, they would give you 10,000 rings of crit strike. So it looks like DPS gloves, but they've done it wrong, or tank gloves that they've done, I don't know. Anyway, I use it just for the defense and the item level. The offensive stats don't really mean too much, although they do help with a little bit of aggro. I'm running the Bloodforge Requiem, mostly just for the item level. Now they do give you a little bit of extra stuff here and there, but for the most part, I'm running those as opposed to the only other thing I've got is the perfect set, which are far more DPS orientated. Going down, I've got the Abyss Conqueror's Provoker Cuirass, Crushers. These are brilliant gloves. A nice flat 5% defense when you're close to your enemy. Obviously, the boots from MSOL would be nice, but I don't have them. The Celestial ones, not the Mythic ones. Over here, I'm just running whatever artifacts I need. This is for combine rating. This is for forte. This is obviously a defensive plus the combine rating, and then an active, which is in this case Heart of the Volcano, doing obviously more damage to the target. However, I do have a few other options I can chuck on if needed, but this is, as I said, an alt. An old set of trousers here just to boost my defense when I'm not near a party member. This will proc every sort of 10 seconds, every 20 seconds, and it will give me 5% critical avoidance, bring my critical avoidance up to cap. Up here, I'm running this set mostly because it gives me the Constitution. However, it does obviously have the bonus when you have got the ritualistic set on. In fact, let me do this here. Okay, my awareness is now overcapped. That's why I didn't have it on. But it does give me a little bonus when I do activate my daily power, dealing a little bit more damage for me, which will help with aggro, because I will use my daily power sometimes for aggro, and lets me take a little bit less damage, which is obviously very nice. Death Silver Hoop of Oppression to get the awareness up, and the Dark Lake Ward Ring. Very important, I find, for any tank that's not a paladin, where we have the giant right bumper aura. This is a must for ad gathering and so on. If I got the AD, I would obviously take the awareness and lower it, putting these into stamina regen instead, and that would balance my stats out and make them look pretty again, because right now they don't look pretty because I just did that one thing. Over here, I've just got garnets for power, I've got amylites for stats, and I've got a celestial tourmaline and forte down here. I got 2 items that give me critical avoidance, well, in the Underdark, and then I've got the Rhyme Temper for the maximum stat increase. Obviously, the Fortified Nature is what everyone used to run, giving you 10% defense, 10% awareness, and 10% deflect for 3 seconds for each stack. it's very reliable. However, that does eventually drop off, and then you have to build the stacks up again. However, we don't need stats too much now. Tanks are getting... the content's not balanced very well around tanks at the moment. You can run a very low level tank in a much higher level dungeon as long as you're a good enough player. So right now we are building into hit points as we want to increase the maximum hit points. As you see here, my maximum hit points are relatively low for a barbarian. However, that does increase in combat. Okay, looking over at the powers. So these are what I'm running. Relentless Slash to increase threat. Sentinel Slash also for the mansion, threat, and so on and so forth. This is a survivability build, so Punishing Charge combined with this feat down here lets me put me on the top of the threat list. It also does a nice big hit. This will give me extra hit points, and this will give me stamina back. If I'm running for aggro generation, because sometimes there's a lot of DPS are not being scaled down. They're getting buffs and buffs and buffs, and our aggro generation is getting worse and worse and worse because they're doing more and more damage. So I've got Come and Get It for ads and stuff. However, you can use something that deals damage, like Indomitable Battle Strike, for example. And then obviously you got the Bloodletter and so on. But I've got that for the AoE. Primal Fury to increase threat again, and obviously to do a bit more damage. This is the thing that people forget. Damage on the tank equals aggro. So in an artifact call, if you've got high damaging things like your Crescendo Daily, dropping that in an artifact call with everybody else's buffs will help you hold aggro. So if you were to chuck this out along with Punishing Charge, along with Indomitable Battle Strike, along with Primal Fury, you should hold aggro for the whole artifact call, provided obviously you're utilizing the buffs that the artifact call brings. The person I'm using Threatening Presence to increase aggro. However, if I needed the survivability, I could go and cap my critical avoidance at all times and get a bit of deflect. I could go for some more maximum hit points and a little bit of power, which does also help aggro a little bit. Or I could go for any of the other things like Rage in Combat, Movement Speed and Deflect. But right now I've just got increased threat on at the moment. Over here I have got Frustrating Slash. Whenever you hit an enemy with Sentinel Slash, your threat generation is increased for 5 seconds. As opposed to Mighty Leap, because Mighty Leap is an AoE that we don't really need. Speaking of actually dailies, Battle High increases the max amount of your hit points by 35%, restores the amount increased by the amount obviously that you're adding on, and allies get 15%. Any barbarian tanks in MSOD who say, oh, we can't do we can't give a bonus to the hypos, we can't give damage mitigation to the hypos. This is damage mitigation. You increase it, they have more hit points. I can't believe like the amount of times that I've played with barbarians and been like, where's the DR? And they go, oh, we don't have anything that gives DR. This is, while not damage resistance, increasing everyone's maximum hit points. If they're going in with 15% more maximum hit points plus overshields, they'll be fine. Going down here, I've got On the Move. Not so fast, increases the magnitude to 350, and now increase the movement speed of self and nearby allies by 20% for 4 seconds. As opposed to Indomitable Battle Strike at the moment, this would be better on this build actually if I was to run Indomitable Battle Strike, obviously generating more aggro. However, I've got on Not So Fast for some reason, although that is a good way you could buff your party a little bit. Just giving them a little bit of movement speed, but this one would be better for aggro. This one's a little bit of party buffing. Over here I have got Boasting Takedown. Takedown now generates increased threat. Okay, so Takedown is, there it is. if I was to run this, obviously it would increase threat. And then obviously here is disarming takedown. Takedown now increases the party's damage taken. Now increases the target's damage taken from physical attacks by 5% for 10 seconds. Another party buff thing, so you could buff the party by another 5% damage by using this. So barbarians do have a little bit of support, and they can functionally do it well. If you've got a party full of you've got a ranger, you've got a rogue, you've got a barbarian or a fighter, or even a bard who's built into physical damage, you could very viably run this pretty reliably and give them a solid 5% most of the time. Over here I have got Inspiring Bravado. Battle High now increases the maximum hit points by of nearby party members by 15% for 10 seconds. That's, as we were saying, that makes the feat actually give the 15%, otherwise it doesn't, it just increases your maximum hit points. And then obviously you've got Crushing Advance here. Savage attack no longer knocks back enemies, but does reduce the target's damage dealt by 12% for 12 seconds. Over here we've got Rage and Rally. Unstoppable now increases threat generated. When Unstoppable ends, it restores up to 40% of the maximum stamina based on how long it lasted. Or you could go for Blood Fury. Primal Fury costs reduced by 30%, while Unstoppable, the Rage of Primal Fury, is reduced by 0 to 0, and now restores hit points equal to the amount of damage dealt. So a bit of survivability there. Boons, whatever. As I said, this is an ult. It would be nice to have all the boon points and I could get higher stats and so on, but that's not a feasible thing. Here, I'm just running what I need. Over here, I'm running a few things from the Mount Hope Now campaign for awareness, critical avoidance, with defense. Critical avoidance, obviously a raptor for the party. Slime's Instinct. We got the Bony Wisdom, and over here I've got the Moonshade Druid. On the back page, as you see, it's not fully kitted out. In fact, I've got some of my DPS insignias on here. Funnily enough, a lot of DPS insignias on here. Mastery, Dominance, Mastery, Aggression, Mastery, Mastery, Dominance, Dominance. I've got DPS. Honestly, you don't need full tanking insignias in order to tank any content in this game. I've tanked high level content in this game with only legendary insignias, and all of them DPS insignias. If you've got good gear on the front page, you don't need insignias on the back page. If you've got good insignias on the back page, you don't need as much good gear on the front page. You can still reach high stats because deflect and deflect severity at the moment aren't hugely important. They don't really matter too much. It's mostly these three and hit points that you really need. So I'm running Gladiator's Gale for movement speed ×2. Protector's Covenant, obviously giving me a few more stats. Guardian Spirit ×2, and that's going to give me some more maximum hit points. For the companion mount stuff, I've got Hamster on for a bit of fun, but I will run anything that obviously buffs the party. I mean, I could go for something like Swarm, or I don't have much upgraded here. Obviously, Pegasus could help the party, Necrotic Lion, but this is for a bit of fun. I have currently got Indestructible equipped. However, I will switch to Pack Tactics if I get asked to. And I would be more than happy to switch to Pack Tactics. In fact, let me see if I can fit this in my build right this second. I cannot. But I would be more than happy to run Pack Tactics if someone asked me to. So that's my stats out of combat. I'll show you what pots I'm using. So obviously, these are the consumables I'm using for my tank. Fizzy Brew, Potion of Defense, Elixir of Steadfast Devotion. This will consume these because I don't have any left. And Honey Bread for the defense. And obviously, Elixirs of Fate. Scroll of Fate is very useful, but I don't really need it, obviously, as I'm capping. Overcapping slightly, actually. I'll hop into combat. I will quickly grab Combat Advantage, and I'm going to give you a rough idea of sort of what it looks like, obviously, I'll generate my aggro. I can always block using my left stick. Hit to generate aggro. I will use either the Dragon Fire, or I can use the what's it called? The Owlbear to help with aggro as well. And then I can go to Rage and just hit away, doing my stuff for stamina regen, my stuff for my healing, all that sort of stuff. And that makes me control immune. As you see here, my stats go 114.5, 86, and 90% in combat. I will just quickly change to my aggro side, and I'll show what I would run for my artifact call. So to keep aggro and artifact call, with this build, I would literally just be using the X button, obviously to generate aggro that way. However, obviously I could run, Indomitable Battle Strength along with this for the extra magnitude and so on. So let's see. I'll go into Rage, Artifact. My encounter power does damage. Belt item, Crescendo. Don't die. There we go. And that should help me keep aggro in the artifact call very nicely. Use my encounter powers to get my daily back. I haven't my daily, sorry. My encounter powers to get my rage back, and this is me obviously in my rage state. You see there. Perfect. So that is my build for my Barbarian here in mod 32. I hope you like this video. It's not a character I play super often, but I do have it for a bit of fun. Barbarian tanking is better than fighter tank. I literally don't even fighter tank or DPS, but the Barbarian tank I can definitely get behind. It's a lot of fun. Anyway, that's all for now. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.